Welcome to the Dragon Slayer podcast by East Idaho Credit Union. I'm your host, Steven. With us always is my co-host, Bailey. And today's guest, Eric Torres Garcia, the founder, the CEO of Cocoa Bombs. Thank you for being here, Eric.
Thank you guys for having me today.
Yeah, we're so excited. You see, we're kind of in the spirit of the season right now. Pulled out our sweaters and everything, and we're so excited. The thing I'm most excited about today is we've got these mugs out in front of us. We're gonna do a little sampling, right?
Oh, awesome.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah, we'll do it later. Andrea is saying not yet.
Just so excited.
Yeah. Okay, so Eric, I want to start kind of from the beginning. Where did you come up with the idea for this thing? Like, how did this happen?
So it's kind of a long story, but I'll give you guys like a quick brief.
Take as long as you want. We've got 8 hours, right? 8 hours? That's how much we have for this? Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, actually back in back in 2017, I studied abroad in Italy. And I was there for 2 years on and off. I mean, I did a 1 year undergrad during my bachelor's. Finished that full year, came back. I was at Boise State at the time, and I really, really loved it. So I took a bunch of summer classes. I took like 21 credits my last semester at Boise State just so I could go back to Italy. And that's exactly what happened. I just pushed through everything, graduated with my bachelor's at BSU in international business, and then I went back to go start a master's program in Italy. And during my time there, I had worked at a gelato shop. I was living in a city that was super famous for like their confectionaries and like chocolate.
What city were you in?
Torino,
okay.
Italy. Yeah. So it's for a lot of soccer fans out there, it's like Juventus. Cristiano Ronaldo plays. I don't know if he still does. Played for their team at one point, but nice city. Ferrero. I'm sure you guys have heard of them. The chocolate company. They're based kind of out on the outskirts of that city. But long story short, during my time there was a lot of different candies that we just really don't see around here. The biggest thing that really caught my attention were these like ginormous Easter eggs that are just like a chocolate. It's just a giant hollow chocolate Easter egg. But you crack it open and there's like toy or something inside,
like a Kinder Egg kind of
thing. Yeah. So they have the mini Kinder Eggs that are like like a little egg, and then the kid eats around it. There's a little capsule. You build a toy out of it. And then they have like the bigger ones that are sometimes for like adults. It's like a huge Easter egg that's like this. You break it open. There's like a bottle of like wine or something inside. It's a really common.
Giving those to your kids.
Yeah. It's a really common holidays treat in Italy, and I was like super intrigued by those. I'm like, why don't we have anything like this in the US?
Yeah. I have a weird story about that, actually. I was in Ireland a couple of years ago, and I was flying home, and we got turned on to those Kinder Eggs while we were there, and we filled our a suitcase with a bunch of these Kinder Eggs, and they confiscated them.
Yeah.
They would not let us bring them back to the US. Yeah. They took them away, and we were like, why?
Dang.
Why can't... And the customs agent was like, oh, it's because they have these little things inside of them, and kids will choke, and that's been outlawed in the U.S. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah. No, yeah. So that was a huge sort of like thing as to why I realized like they didn't have them in the U.S. It was exactly what you just said. There was like this toy on the inside that's a choking hazard, and you can't have that. But yeah, I mean, I that sort of concept really stuck with me. I came back after, a second year there, and I started working in accounting. It was great, but it wasn't fulfilling, I like how he said it was great, but it wasn't fulfilling. The company was awesome. The people I worked with were really, really great, but the job itself was just very redundant and repetitive. And, I was in a couple of months and just realized, this isn't really for me. Like I'm not having as much fun as I thought I would.
Yeah.
So during that time frame, like around December, I came back in October, and then December, that's kind of when I realized this wasn't my calling. I started playing around with like that concept that I saw, like, the Kinder Egg specifically, and just started brainstorming a lot of things. And I remember this was December 2nd. It was on my mom's birthday when I just got up one morning and I went to the store. I bought like $15 worth of stuff, I'm like, let's try to see what we can recreate out of this. And yeah, I mean, I kind of put some stuff together. I had like these hollow ornaments that I bought from the Dollar Tree. You know, they cost me like $1, and then chocolate chips and marshmallows, and, you know, started playing around with some stuff. And I knew that like I couldn't put anything inedible inside because of the choking hazard.
Right.
But I tried it with the marshmallows, and I'm like, let's see if this will actually work. And so I got a really nice prototype after like many failed attempts.
Yeah. So when you got up that day and went to the store, were you like, I think I can make a business out of this? Or were you just like, this would be a fun thing to do?
Yeah. It was just for fun. You know, it was a Saturday morning. I was just, you know, like I don't have anything to do. And I'm like, okay, like let's just go do this. And at this time I was like living at my friend's house, but I was crashing on his couch. So like I wasn't like in a super good position, but I'm like, let's just, you know, go do something, you know, like
your friend's probably
different.
Like, you're living on my couch.
Yeah.
And you just bought $15 worth of chocolate. Yeah.
So like let's do it. Came back and yeah, I mean, started playing around, and I got a really nice prototype together. And then I wrapped it up kind of like what you would see at a store, I guess. You know, I wanted to look like, oh, I you know, made this, but like, you know, for it to like finally end up somewhere. But anyways, I took this, you know, prototype, and then I took a video of this prototype.
The famous video.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was so funny because the prototype, I completely had forgot to take the actual like chocolate outside of the plastic. So like it was still inside of the plastic. And I remember just like placing it in the mug, and it looked really cool. You know, it doesn't look anything like the products we make now, but it still looked, you know, at the time cool. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I took a video, you know, like warmed up some milk and then poured over it, and kept the video. And then I think just that next like day, I went on Shopify, built a website for free using their 2-week free trial. I had only ever made one prototype with like milk chocolate, but on my website, I decided to post like dark and white chocolate, and I had no idea how I was going to do it. But I did it anyway. I'm like, okay, like let's just, you know, have at it. And then I finally remember like posting the video first to like all my personal social media pages. So like my personal Facebook, Instagram, you know, Snapchat, all those social media channels. And it got some attention, but it didn't like convert to any sales. Like people were like, oh, that's so cool. Like, where did you get this? And I would tell them like I made them. And then they just never responded.
And then they're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, like let's try this a different way. So I took everything down, and then I went back to like the website, just made sure it looked like really, really good and that it worked. You know, like I'm like, okay, like we're going to try this a different way.
So did you spend time like working through the conversion channels on the website, and you were like, okay, I've got these 3 products. Did you like walk through it like you were somebody buying it and trying to figure out like what worked well and what didn't?
Yeah. So, I probably should have tested it a lot more, but like I just was like, okay, it works. Like, you know, like that's all that matters. You know, like it charges it for them, you know. And there were some mistakes I made along that way. You know, like when I first, actually, I'll get into this here in a bit. But anyways, like I made sure it worked, right? You know, the add to cart, buy, checkout, boom. Okay, it worked. And then I went back to my, or to TikTok. This was just coming up. And at this point, like I had known the name that I was going to call the product like Cocoa Bombs. You know, like I looked everywhere, and there was no name for this product. You know, it was like nothing out there. So I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I took all those social media channels. So I took, you know, Cocoa Bombs, Instagram, the Facebook, the Pinterest, you know, the Twitter, TikTok was like the main catalyst.
And this was like 2019.
Yeah, this was 2019. Right? Yeah, so this was
like the beginning of kind of TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. It was the very, very beginning of TikTok. So once I got all those, I'm like, okay, like let's just post this video, see how it does. And TikTok was like, you know, up and coming. It was coming, you know, pretty big. Like, you know, you could just post something and, you know, So I did that exactly. Like I took this video and then I posted it, and I just captioned it like, you know, who would buy these? And then I slowly started to see like the number of views increase. Like, you know, I posted it, and then like a couple minutes later it was like 60. And then, you know, I remember just like at one point I was just like, you know, looking at my phone, and I was refreshing, and it was like 1,000 and then like 4,000. And then like I finally got like the first order come through, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. Like, you know, like
it worked.
Maybe if I like, you know, like maybe I'll just wait until I get a few more orders, and then, you know, I'll start making all of them tomorrow.
So when you were watching that video kind of pick up steam
Yeah.
and, 1,000, 4,000, 10,000, 60,000, were you like, did you have like a freak out moment where you were just like, oh no, am I ready to do this?
So
am I prepared for this?
For me, it was mainly just like about going viral.
Yeah.
Like that was it for me. I didn't have any like.
You weren't even trying to convert
Yeah,
it yet.
no. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was cool that like I got my first sale, but like I was more excited about the video just like going up in views so quickly.
Yeah.
Like the sales were cool, but I'm like, oh my God, it's like I'm going viral
Yeah.
like on TikTok.
Mhm.
And anyways, yeah, it really did end up going like,
Well, I think when I looked, it was 2.6
Yeah.
million views on that
yeah.
video.
So
It's
that
fantastic.
all
Yeah.
happened, like 1.7 of those million views happened within like the first 10 hours of the video.
Wow.
So it was
Awesome.
like,
Fast.
Yeah, fast.
Yeah.
And during those first 10 hours, after I got the first sale, I'm like, okay, this is cool. Shortly after, I hear like the second one, then the third one. And then it just, for the first like 10 hours, it was just my phone was going off like the Shopify. Are you guys familiar with that
Yeah,
sound?
yeah. Like dings on you. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my goodness. Like it just kept going on and on and on and on and on. And then I eventually called my mom. And she was like here. I was living in Boise at the time, but I'm like, Mom, I'm like, I did something, and she thought I did something bad. About, like, she's like, what did you do? I'm like, no, like I
need
did
to come
something.
bail me out.
And she's like, what? I'm like, so I invented this product, like I posted it to like TikTok, and then like now I'm like, I'm at like, I think when I called her, it was something like maybe $3,000 or $2,000 in sales. I can't remember exactly,
Wow,
but it was
yeah.
like, wow, like I've already made this, like in an hour. And she's like, what? And yeah, I mean, by the end of the day, it was just kind of like back and forth, me and her talking, and I was just like, okay, and what do I do now? Like
Yeah.
I've only ever made one, and now I have all these orders coming in. Like, what am I gonna do? End of the day, I think I had done like $8,000 in sales, like in
Wow.
10 hours,
Wow.
and I realized I'm like, okay, like I can't, like keep taking
Yeah.
all these orders, like.
Yeah.
So I put everything as like sold out, like
Uh-huh.
let's, and then I told people, I'm like, okay, like we're gonna get through these like first round of orders, but it took me so long to like figure out what
Well,
to
you
do
hadn't like
next.
perfected
Yeah.
the manufacture
Yeah,
yet.
no. So
Yeah.
it was crazy. Like, the very first one I used like, Dollar Tree hollow plastic ornaments. And I'm like, okay, like that's not, feasible for
Yeah.
hundreds of them,
Yeah,
and
Dollar
I
Tree
have to
ran
ship
out of
out to
them. Yeah.
hundreds of customers like across the US.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like that was my first mistake really, is like I had oversold without figuring out
How to
anything.
deliver.
Yeah, how to deliver. And I wasn't even a legal business at
Yeah.
that time. It was just something that went viral on TikTok and under my name. But I remember like that following day, like on a Monday, I went to my Boise State's entrepreneur professor, like my old professor.
Mhm.
And I just walked in and I'm like, hey, like, like I have something to talk to you about. And, I was already graduated, but like, he remembered me. And he's like, oh yeah, like, how are you doing? And I'm like, good. And then we kind of just sat down. I was like, so I have something to show you. And he's like, okay. And I pulled out my laptop, and there was still like, tons of people on the website, that were just kind of logging in and out,
Right.
because the video was still circulating. And I remember I'm like, so I invented this thing, I posted a video, I have all these sales that came in, a couple days ago. I have no idea what to do next. Like, I just wanted to kind of show you like what is going on. And he's like, okay. So I sat down and told him what it was. I showed him the website, I showed him the video, I showed him everything. And then we were basically just like, what do I do next? Like, what do I do next? Like I've only ever
Yeah.
made one of these. Now I have to make, hundreds and ship them out to all across the US. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, I'm not even a legal business. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, that's the first thing we got to
Yeah,
do.
let's do that
He's like, let's go ahead and like, figure that out first. And he's
Mhm.
like, but before you like go there, he's like, you really only have like two options. He's like, I'm like, okay. He's like, well, you either, like can give people all their money back,
Mhm.
or you can get, and like verbatim, like, you're asked to work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, like I'm like I'm definitely going with the second choice.
Yeah.
Like this is like $8,000 that I made like in less than like, a day.
Right.
And I'm sure I can do something with this. And he's like, okay. He was like, well, I know the name of like a great attorney who can help you with like the legal process
Yeah.
of like, getting the company up and running, filing for a trademark. I think this is something you should try to protect the name, and then really go from there. And I'm like, okay. So we did just that. He referred me to an attorney, and like that same day I got in contact with him. And we did the paperwork. We did like a rush file fee to get everything done.
Right.
And then, that took about, 1 day, 2 days to finally get that back, 3 days, I think. And then, I met with him again, and we started talking about like co-packers and like where I could go.
Yeah.
And that was going to be like the first sort of route I was going to do. But I was introduced to a couple, and we're in Idaho. We don't really have like a very huge confectionery manufacturing, sort of, what is it?
The infrastructure.
Yeah,
for
infrastructure for that around here, And so I talked to, actually one of the very first people I talked to was Idaho Candy Company. I don't know if you've, those Spud bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the very first person I talked to. And, to this day, David Wagers at the company, the president of the company, has been a huge mentor of mine, to really just sort of guide me through infancy of the company to really where we are today. That's I'll get into that later too. But I went to him, and we obviously signed NDAs, and I'm like, okay, this is what I have. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. Obviously now, like I have all these orders coming up, and I don't know what to do. And he's like, okay. He's like, it's a really cool product. I just can't help you. And I'm like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah. He was like, this is a really awesome thing. But keep in mind, this was December 3rd, December 5th.
Yeah. So he's going crazy.
Exactly. He's like, I wish you would have came to me sooner, earlier, and a couple months sooner, I maybe could have helped you.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm in the middle of my own production, we're already super backed up. And then he was like, but maybe you can go talk to this other company. And the other company was just like a local sort of chocolatier, they have more gourmet kind of chocolates. And, I was like, okay, well, thank you so much. He's like, yeah, but if you do need help with anything else, just let me know. And I'm like, okay. Went to the other company, and the guy didn't want to sign the NDA.
Oh, okay.
So I never even went there with him.
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
What was his reason for not wanting to sign it? Did he give a reason, or he just said, I don't want to sign that thing?
He was just like, well, he's just like, I don't know about this. And I'm like, okay. I was like, but do you do any contract manufacturing? He's like, yeah, but and he was just kind of like that the whole time. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, he's like, well, if you really want to, you can, send me an email with the NDA, and I'll see what we can do. And I sent it to him, got in touch with him, and I just never heard back. So I'm like, okay, so
that's interesting.
Maybe he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just, didn't even bother getting in touch with the other company. But by this point, almost a full week had gone by, and I'm like, okay, these people are waiting. I need to figure something out. I emailed most of them.
Yeah.
And I told them, I'm like, hey, look, we weren't expecting such an influx of demand. We're trying to figure out a way, to, catch up with these orders and get your item shipped out as soon as possible. You can either cancel now for a full refund or wait. And all but 2 people were like, oh, please keep my order. 2 others like, oh, well, I'm moving, so I won't be here anymore. Just cancel it, please. And I'm like, okay. But everybody was super patient. Mostly were like, oh, these are so cool. I'm willing to wait. Please, we just want to try these out. We want them delivered. I'm like, okay. So yeah, it took me a week to kind of do all that. And then I spent another couple of days just trying to think of solutions of where am I going to go? Where am I going to do this? And the attorney had told me, well, I have a commercial kitchen you can use, after hours if you want, we use it from, I think he said, I don't know, it was almost to midnight or something. But if you want to work, midnight to 6 a.m, you're more than welcome to inside. And I'm like, okay.
That's better than sleeping on your friend's couch.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's an option. But we, my mom at this point was super involved too, because she's like, we do have to figure out a way to do this.
I assume is her in some of your videos.
Yeah. She's in the videos, a lot of them. And yeah, we were both looking for solutions, and then we came across a commercial kitchen that we could use at our local church in Blackfoot. She's like, Eric, she's like, I found a place we can make these, we got permission from, Father Jose and the church. And so, it was a huge blessing for us to really get that, space, because
That's amazing.
I was at in Boise, there was no way I would be able to find anything. And I looked at some kitchens, and they're like, oh yeah, we charge think it was like $65 by the hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't, you know, like there's no way I can afford that right now. And I don't even know what I need, how to make these. So it's going to, you know, anyways.
Yeah. You needed a lot of time to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we ended up, you know, using that space. I ordered a bunch of other like little red silicone molds that I was making stuff with the first year, actually first like year and a half. And we did just that, you know, I bought a bunch of chocolate from like Smart Food Service here in Idaho Falls. I bought a bunch of marshmallows from them too. And then we started making these. But once I was making them, I'm like, oh crap, how am I going to package these? You know, I was like, that's the next thing. I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to send these, you know, like these are pretty fragile items. Like, you know, and I didn't, that didn't cross my mind at the time, was like that these are fragile items. I have to figure out a way to package these correctly.
Well, and they can melt too,
and they can melt,
right?
Yeah. So thankfully this was like December. It was really cold in most of the country. Like, you know, we had no issues with melting, but we did have issues with breakage. Yeah. And I realized that when I didn't realize that at first. Like, you know, we ended up ordering these like little boxes from Uline. And then I just, you know, handmade the ingredients labels with like a Epson printer, you know, like the little
with like an
tags.
adhesive strip.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, like it's formatted correctly, you know, it has this, you know, made by this, and then like I put like my logo on the top of the box, sealed it, and then I'm like, okay, like that's good, you know, like it looks like something you'd find like at a local craft chocolatier. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So I did that, but what I had trouble with was like I was putting them in padded envelopes. And I didn't know at the time, like, you know, postal carriers are not very cautious with your packages. And so
especially like a padded envelope. Like
exactly.
That,
they'll just
throw
like,
it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't think about that. And, you know, I started getting some emails that like, oh, hey, like I got the package, but everything was broken. I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. My house out, I live out in Moreland, so not far from your place.
Really? That's crazy.
And, I've had stuff delivered at my house. Like it could have gone in the mailbox for whatever reason. The postal carrier just like chucked it on the ground.
Yeah, I have like okay, and so and you know here I think they're a little nicer. Like if you go to other places, they're just like boom, 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 you know, because there's so much mail to deliver. Right. So yeah, you know that was really the first thing, and then we just figured out a way. Like okay, we obviously can't send these in padded envelopes. We even tried like making a little box inside the padded envelope to send them out. Those still got crushed. Yeah. And then we're like, okay, like we're doing boxes only. So yeah, I mean, we figured out how to get through that first round of orders.
Did your cost go up significantly as you worked through the packaging piece of what you did, and the shipping piece? Where you're like, oh man, we're kind of bumping up against where I'm comfortable.
Oh yes, so that's so funny too, because this is another mistake I had made. So with shipping, I had greatly overestimated the weight of an item. So these little things weigh like 1.2 ounces. Right. I had no idea. Like I guess I could have gotten like a little scale and figured it out, but I'm like, I think it weighs about a pound. You know, I'm like, that does not weigh a pound. And so when people
pound of chocolate.
when people were ordering, they were ordering like, you know, 4 or 5. You know, there was some customers
you
who
thought
like
we were sending 5 pounds of chocolate.
Yeah. And there was some customer who ordered like 40 or 50 of them. And so, you know, to ship a 50-pound box is like
a lot.
$40-$50.
Yeah.
And then I realized this is only going to like cost me like, you know,
how were you charging for shipping? Were you charging for shipping or
yeah.
Okay. So they would order 50 of these and you would charge them $50 in shipping.
So I had set up shipping to where it was weight and destination based.
Right. Yeah.
So everything was being calculated on the like back end, you know, through either USPS or, you know, UPS or whatever the customer chose to ship with. And it's funny because some customers, you know, ordered like one, but I still had to pay the $8 in shipping or $7 in shipping, whatever it was, because it was going in a box.
Right.
But then it made up for it with another customer who maybe ordered like 4. I'm like, okay, so this customer, you know, obviously paid like, you know, $15. This customer had to pay $8. This one's only going to cost me like $7. So it made up with the difference, you know, like of like that, you know, it eventually ended up canceling everything out, like where I didn't like pay for shipping. The customers all ended up paying for shipping on their end with that whole overcalculating of the weight. But then I figured out, I'm like, okay, these obviously don't weigh a pound, you know, they weigh 1.5 ounces, you know? And then I fixed that. And then we ended up just moving to a model that does like a flat rate shipping the first year, where I'm like, okay, this is all going out with this priority today. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like $11.99 or something like that, you know, and that's all they paid.
Right.
So yeah, we got through those first round of orders, and then that was probably like December, maybe a couple or a week before Christmas. You know, people got their items a week before Christmas. They're like, this is so cool. Thank you.
So from it was
December 2nd.
December 2nd is when you started getting orders in, and you got them. You went through that whole process in a couple of weeks. That's pretty fast.
That's
actually.
It was so
really
fast. It was so fast.
Did you sleep at all that whole time?
I cried a lot of times. I did. I know. I really did. I cried like maybe 3 nights just because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is so cool, but like, I don't know if I'm like ready for this. Like, it was good stress.
Yeah.
But it was also like a lot of like just figuring stuff out really fast.
You know, this is a problem I've seen lots of times actually, is like a company, they don't go out of business because they didn't grow, but because they grew too fast actually, and they struggled with that growth. What kind of advice would you give to maybe your younger self that's going through that situation? What would you say to that person? They just hit a viral video. They got all these orders. They weren't ready to do it really. What kind of advice would you give them?
Seek help from the experts. You know, there's a lot of people who have done this already. I think for me, what really helped was, you know, going out to seek help from David Wagers, like at Idaho Candy Company. He was a huge help. And he was like, okay, well, obviously, like, you know, you have to package it correctly so that it makes it. You have to put a label on it so people know what's inside of it.
Right.
If you're shipping across state lines, you know, you got to make sure that it has, like, you know, contact information in case anything, blah, blah, blah. Which I would not have known any of that myself. I mean, I guess I could have figured it out online, but it just helps to go to somebody who's maybe done it before or in a similar industry and just ask for help. You know, a lot of the times people are really, really, really willing to, like, you know, give you the help you need because they've been in that position before. Right. So,
yeah.
And it's still something I live by this day, you know, like I always, you know, seek help. Without it, there's no way we would have ever gotten this far with the company. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I love that story. You do the video, you get all these orders, and then the first thing that you do is you just start calling people. Mom, I don't know, something happened. You don't have to bail me out, but we got to talk about this. You go to your old professor, you go to the Idaho Candy Company. Like, I love that. The first thing that you did is like, I got to ask somebody who maybe can help me here. That's great advice. Okay, so that's the first run of orders. What happened after that?
So after that, come January, there was still some movement. So we kind of did some stuff. And then after that, I don't know, like, I guess I didn't really take it super serious. I'm like, that was so cool, you know, but like, I just didn't know. And so like, I actually ended up moving to Los Angeles for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, I took some stuff with me. I'm like, if I get orders, I'll just make them there. And I lived there for like 2 months, 3 months. And then that's when like COVID started happening. So I was like looking for a job during that time. And it was like March, and I was like told, hey, like, you know, there's like the first case in Orange County, and I'm like, oh crap, that's like, you know, 20 minutes away from me. And then it started getting more serious. It got serious fast there. Yeah, you know, and started saying like, okay, like people are obviously not going to be hiring. I did one interview, and they were like, yeah, well, you know, like because of this, we don't really know what's going to happen next. Yeah. And then I started seeing similar patterns with other interviews. I'm like, okay, like I can't stay here, you know? So like I ended up just going back to Blackfoot. And during the summer, you know, like people don't really think about hot chocolate, and I wasn't really thinking about hot chocolate. So I ended up just taking this was so funny. Like I ended up just kind of like not doing a lot during that first month into COVID. And it was really hard to find, you know, like a job during that time.
Yeah, sure.
I remember I actually like ended up working at like Dairy Queen for like a month too, just because I'm like, I need something, you know, like, and I didn't want to be in like living in Blackfoot. I was living in Boise again on my friend's couch. And then I quit that job really fast. And then I started doing Instacart. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Yeah. So it was super lucrative in Boise during, you know, COVID. I remember I was just working 5 days a week. doing Instacart. And, fast forward to the end of summer, I think I ended up saving like $17,000
Wow.
just doing
That's awesome.
Instacart
Crazy.
heavily, all June, July, and August.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like this is awesome. And then that's when I started looking back into, Cocoa Bombs. And I'm like, I think I want to like, do this like more seriously. And so I ended up just looking for like tempering machines. So, the very first round of orders, we used like a cheese melter thing to melt chocolate.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
knew nothing about melting or tempering chocolate. But I remember we used that. My mom had a coupon for like $50 from like Bath and Body Works, which is where she bought it. So we, bought this little cheese melter thing. We were like, there was little brushes and spoons into each little silicone thing. It was such a mess. But I started looking more into like, industrial equipment, so to say.
Yeah.
And so I found a machine in California that, tempered, I think it was like 20 pounds of chocolate. I'm like, okay, like that's a lot, but I think it could work. And then I ended up also finding some molds that like, I found on Alibaba. I'm like, hey, I need 50 millimeter ball molds, but I want to fill them with something. And so they did just that, I bought like, I think it was like 100 of them or something, got them sent in from China, on Alibaba. And then I went to go pick up this machine in Torrance, California, tempering machine, brought it back. And this was so funny too, because I remember like, it was like the end of September, I think last week of September. And I was just kind of like, like, this is so cool. Like, I'm going to actually do this more. Like, let's start playing around with it. And I had no idea what I was doing, like nothing. Like it was even harder.
Yeah.
And then I remember too, like, the website was like live still. And then just the first week of October, it was like October 3rd, it just started picking up like crazy. Like people were like seeing these, I guess, more. And it just started picking up, and like, we just started getting order. And I remember like, we were so excited, like, oh yeah, like, we're getting more orders. And then it got to the point where like, we couldn't figure out how to use the equipment a week into like, getting all this new equipment. And like, it went from like, yeah, another order to like, oh my goodness, I'm scared, like another order just came through, but we haven't made any, like we can't figure out this equipment. And, that's kind of where I had another, like, sort of moment of like, can I do this? Like, can I not?
Yeah.
Like, because these orders were coming in really fast and we couldn't figure out how to use this equipment at all. And so that's where I, like, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, I just don't know if I can. And I almost called it quits that time, just because it was like, this is a lot, like, I don't know, like, this is like stuff professionals do, like, like I don't even know what I'm doing, like
were you like, this isn't fun anymore? Like
it did get to a point. Yeah. I got really frustrated with the equipment and couldn't figure out how to use it. We couldn't figure out how to mold it. We couldn't figure out how, like, to have the molds we bought were like special molds. They're not like the little plastic silicone ones, are like hard plastic. And I'm like, how the heck is this chocolate going to unmold from this hard plastic? But I didn't know anything about like tempering and like molding and like chocolate contracting and all that stuff. So I called Dave again.
Yeah.
And we just kind of had a conversation. I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore, Dave. And like, I remember like crying again that time too, because I'm like, this is like, like I had sold, I think around that time too, it was like 10K in like a couple of days. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, like I don't want to leave this on the table, but I can't figure it out. And he was like, well, like, what are you using? He's like, do you have like molds? Like, I'm like, yeah, like I got some special molds, like that does everything. He's like, well, you got to like temper your chocolate correctly. I'm like, okay, like,
what does that
mean? You know? And he's like, well, you got to like, have it go to this temperature and then back down to this, let it crystallize. And then, you have to let the mold cool for like 20 minutes. And like, I was counting to the dot 20 minutes and I would try to unmold them and it would just break apart and everything. I'm like, it's not working. But I remember, like, I think I just ended up trying it again. But this time, like, I just kind of, molded the chocolate. And then I just left it there. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm just going to go home for the night. It was like 2 a.m, and I was trying to figure stuff out. And then I came back. And the next day, they were contracted. And I flipped the mold over. And everything just fell out. And I'm like, it worked. I'm like, it worked. Like, like, they finally unmolded. And that's when I realized, like, okay, it's not just 20 minutes, like we don't have like, we didn't have like any sort of cold room or cold tunnel. A lot of these chocolate manufacturers have like cold tunnels that like they'll mold, they'll run it through a cold tunnel. At the end of the cold tunnel, it's contracted from the mold. You flip it over, it's out. So we didn't have any of that. We had to let it cool in ambient temperature, which takes like almost, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, we ended up finally figuring out how to use these like molds. It was still a lot of work, that first or that second year, I guess like the first year we could only make like 60 bombs in like a whole day. The second year, after finally figuring out to like a proprietary method, like fast forwarding to the end of 2020, we figured out how to make like 800 a day. And that's really where like it took off, like we had finally like, we were foil wrapping them by hand, and then I had custom boxes made from a supplier I met at a trade show in Los Angeles, from Taiwan to make our packaging. They sent us over. We figured out how to package it nicely. We did a bunch of tests with shipping too. So we'd put them in boxes, we'd throw it, we'd kick it, we'd slam it.
I love that.
And
try
then
to destroy it.
We'd open it and they'd be in perfect condition. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
At East Idaho Credit Union, we're a full-service business lending center. We can help with all of your needs, from a small startup all the way to a large enterprise and everything in between. Our commercial loan officers will work with you to understand your business and to help get you to the next level. Come check us out at eastidahocu.org/business.
We kind of got through that super quick too. And this was funny because when we finally had figured out how to make a bunch of these, I would go to like my Shopify website and I'd let people know like, hey, sign up for this newsletter. We'll email you once we're having a restock event.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so that's exactly what we would do. We'd make a bunch, as many as we could. And then we just, stack them and like, we'd put them on racks and be like, okay, like this is how many we have of each. We're having a relaunch event, a week from this day. Join us, at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and don't miss out.
Yeah.
People would, and like, when that time would come, people would hop on so fast.
Yeah.
Onto the website, and we would just have all these items in stock and everything would be sold out. Like, we'd be like, hey, we're live, everything's back on.
Wow. Yeah.
2 minutes, everything would be gone.
That's incredible.
Everything would be gone.
Well, you created this urgency, right? And people are like, I don't want to miss out.
Yes.
Nobody likes to miss out, right?
Yeah.
Were you getting a lot of repeat orders?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
So like if you were going to break down, these are repeat versus these are net new people that are ordering from me. Like, what does that ratio look like?
It tells me. I can't remember. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I do know we had customers who were like, got some like we had I think about 4 huge restock events in 2020. And I do know they'd be like, oh, I only got one flavor. I wanted the other flavor, but maybe I'll get it on the next restock. And so like, I would see them coming back trying to get the other flavors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's exactly, like kind of what we did for that first year.
Yeah.
And it worked out really great. We sold out every single time.
Amazing.
And we were doing direct to consumer. So that was huge, and we had really good margins on all of our products.
Yeah.
We also started doing like corporate gifting, which I had no idea how to really do. But I'm like, it's like, they want 500 units. How do I do this? I have no idea. And I just, that I didn't ask for help. I'm just like, let's see what I can do. And like, I kind of figured out like, okay, well, like if you buy this amount, I'll give you like an X% discount.
Right.
I think it was like 10 or 15%. Yeah. Like we'll send them all in one box wherever they need to go, and that was good for the first corporate order. And then the second corporate order was like, oh, well, we actually want you to send it out to everybody. So I'm like, oh, crap. And so, I kind of just figured that out. So I'm like, okay, this is what it is for shipping. Obviously there's packaging and handling. There's time involved to package everything. So I figured out a rate for that. And then how many they wanted and blah, blah, blah. We got an Excel sheet of everything. But we did have to manually enter every single thing into Shopify and make all these orders, print them out, package them. And,
Was that a portion of the business that you liked doing, or were you like, it's okay?
So at the time,
nice to get, an order for 500 in one whack. But
yeah. At the time, I think it was just really new to me. So I didn't, it was more like, what's the word? So like, it was really new to me. So I felt like I didn't want to do it because I was scared of not knowing how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a couple emails that I got that I'm just like, I don't know how to do this. And I just couldn't get to them in time. So I did let them go, like I just didn't respond because I'm like, okay, well, I have this to do, this to do, this to do. And like, I just can't get, and it was just me doing all the admin work. So like, the ordering, the everything.
Yeah. Did you have any employees at this
we
stage?
We did. Yeah. So it was me, my mom, and then we had just another employee. We were in a really small commercial kitchen though. It was probably the size of this room. Pretty small, just one big table here. And yeah, so we couldn't make a ton,
Right.
we were kind of limited. But yeah, I remember that was basically 2020.
Wow.
And then, yeah.
Okay, so you had, and this is all interesting being like in the COVID kind of era,
Oh, yeah.
right? How that affected businesses has always been fascinating to look at and see. So, okay, so you get through the next kind of season. Have you found that what you do is largely seasonal then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
A
seasonal.
lot of people aren't thinking hot chocolate in the middle of summer, right?
It's funny because consumers like us we are not thinking about hot chocolate in the summer.
Right.
But the people we work with now, buyers from these stores, they're thinking about hot chocolate the very next day after Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we need to get ready for the following year. And for me, that was just like a huge moment of realization where I'm like, oh, wow, like this can be year round,
Right,
because we actually just had a client we did some private labeling for this year. And, we started making them, I think, in like June, and they're like, we need these delivered by July.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, and they were Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So we had to make them all, and then we delivered by July, and I'm like, oh, wow. But then we have some other clients, that are like, we're working with a year in advance to get stuff out, for 2023 holiday.
Right.
Yeah. So
you've gotten into some wholesaling pieces then as well. Talk to us about that. How did that transition happen?
So that transition was mainly when I started getting a lot of calls at that commercial kitchen. And there was this one call in particular I remember too. Like, it was just me and my mom, and we were just, kind of packaging stuff up. And I get this call, and it was just, I can't remember who it was, but it was just, he's like, the guy was like, hey, like, I'm so-and-so, it was East Coast. I have about, 300 stores on this side. I'd be wanting maybe to get, see what we can do to get a couple pallets, for this direction.
Okay.
And I remember just like looking at, like, we had a whole stack of molds. And at the time we didn't know that like molds didn't need to be washed every single run.
Yeah.
So we were like making them, stacking them, washing them, drying them, polishing them after every single run.
Yeah.
And so it would take a lot of time. And I remember just like having this huge stack of molds on the table, like piled up this high. And like I was on the speakerphone with him, and he's like, yeah, I want a pallet, or like, a couple pallets for like, the stores. Like, I have 300 locations. I remember just like looking at like the molds, and then like just kind of like looking at like we had maybe like 100 bombs we had packaged or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, like, I don't think we can do that right now, but like, I'll save your contact information and I'll give you a call when we're ready. That was a huge moment of realization where I'm like, okay, I can really take this to the next level, but I couldn't do it in that commercial kitchen.
Right. Too small.
Yeah. So, kind of fast forward through that season. I started looking around for a lot of places to like be able to get more space to make more items in store and manufacture. And it was really hard. I looked in Boise, and everything was kind of like, oh, well, it's going to be this amount. And, I wasn't very familiar with like the commercial renting terms. They'll have like, I can't even think of the word right now, but, it's like 3 years, and then it's like triple N, I think, or something like that, where you have to be paying this and this and this. I didn't really know a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I looked in Blackfoot, and there was really nothing here too. And so, at that point, and I was already starting to work with some of these customers, like, okay, like, we might be able to do something, like, just let us, give us some time to figure stuff out. So 2021 comes around. I was looking everywhere like crazy. Didn't really find anything. And then, I came across this like area in Blackfoot, sort of by the Rose exits, FedEx Station Center. You know where that is? Yeah. So I was out there, and I saw like there was some buildings for lease, and I just called the guy. I'm like, hey, I need something with floor drains and washable walls, because I knew, like, food manufacturing places have to have that,
right,
or have to have that,
right.
And he's like, well, I don't really have anything like that out here, but like, if I do, like, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And so, like, I didn't find anything. Then I did find something like a week later, which was like a really nice building. It was like 10,000 square feet. It had a loading dock. And the guy who was renting it out was really nice, you know, and he was like, yeah, like, you know, if you want, I'll, you know, if you rent it now, I'll only charge you like $1,500 a month.
Wow.
Until, you know, you finally move in, you know, so we can do like that for the first couple of months. He hadn't rented it out for like months. So he was just trying to like rent it out. I didn't take him up on the offer. Oh, because I was like, I wasn't sure. I'm like, I don't know if I can afford that, you know, like, I don't know. Like, it was a lot of money to me at the time.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't do it, and then somebody else moved in and took it. And I'm like,
are you like, dang it, it should have been me.
Yes, yeah. I beat myself up about it for days. And then I went back to this Roseforth area, and I saw another building had the same sign, like for lease. And so I called and I said, hey, like, you know, my name's Eric. I'm looking for some building to lease, you know, with floor drains and washable walls. He's like, didn't you just call me about like a week ago for the same thing? And I'm like, oh yeah, like that was me. Like, I didn't know like this was you too. He's like, yeah. He's like, I own all those buildings out there. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he just asked me, he's like, well, what do you need like floor drains and washable walls for? And then that's, I'm like, oh, well, you know, I kind of told him the story. You know, we started this company, chocolate. We're moving up. You know, we need something to make stuff out of. And then he's like, well, I don't have anything like that. But if you want, you know, like I can meet you out there in a little bit, you know, just to kind of, you know, see if maybe there's something, you know,
that you can do with it.
Yeah, that you can do.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay. He's like, if you're willing to wait there, I'll be there in like 5 minutes. Okay. The guy pulls up, you know, he's this nice, you know, older gentleman. And, you know, me and my mom were both waiting, and we just kind of like, he introduced who he was, you know, like, my name's Joe. He's like, I own all these buildings out here, blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of walked around and, you know, started looking around, and, you know, he's like, well, I have this, you know, but it's like the walls were like, I don't even know. It's like concrete, I guess, kind of. He's like, would something like this work? I'm like,
it was a prison, an old prison.
Yeah, or something like that. I'm like, I think it needs to be more like smooth, you know, and that we definitely need the floor drains. And he's like, okay. Told him the story as we were walking around, you know, looking at buildings. And then he's like, well, he's like, you know, I don't really have anything like that out here, but I can probably build something like that. And I didn't take it seriously, you know. I was like, okay, like, yeah, you know, like that's probably what we would need. He's like, well, when do you need it by? I'm like, well, you know, we'd really like to start having a place to manufacture out of at least by like August, you know, or something. We were starting to work with like, you know, basically like a distributor in bigger stores, and kind of like, you know, getting a lot of pressure to make these items super fast.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, like that's
high quantities.
And high quantities. And like, that's kind of what, like, you know, that's what's on me right now. He's like, okay. And then he's like, yeah, I was like, well, I can probably build something like that. And I was like, okay, you know, like that sounds great, you know, and I didn't take it seriously, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
But then he called me again, and he was like, hey, you know, like, do you want to come down to the office, you know, like his office, and, you know, just talk a little bit more about your project and kind of what you need? I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, like, you know, like, I think I'd love to hear more about it. I'm like, okay. So went down, and, you know, at this point I'm like, okay, like, well, like, let's show him how serious I am, you know, about all of this. And so, you know, we started talking, and I started showing him emails. We were at that time working really closely with Costco Canada, like a gift basket supplier that provides stuff to Costco.
Incredible.
In Canada.
Yeah.
So we had this huge order, you know, kind of like, look, this is really what we need to do, but we need the building to be this and this and this and this. And he was like, okay. And then we were like, you know, talking about like what it needs and everything. Anyways, like fast forward to like all of that, we ended up becoming like, you know, very serious about the project, both me and him. He was the owner of the entire company, but he was retired already. But he oversaw everything. I don't know if you're familiar with Cannon Builders.
I'm not personally. No.
Okay, so they are they built a ton of bridges around this area.
Oh, okay.
So they're you know, bridges and commercial, you know, running construction. So he was a gentleman. Joe Cannon is you know, the owner who's now retired. But basically, like, you know, we got really serious about everything, and he's like, okay, he's like, well, if you're really serious about this, you know, like, I think we can do something. And at first we were looking at retrofitting one of his older buildings, but his tenant was like, no, he's like, I think I am going to end up using that space. He's like, okay. He's like, Eric, he's like, you know, I just got, you know, done visiting the old tenant. He's like, he said he's going to use the rest of the building. So we're actually going to start, you know, working on plans to get the building built. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, wow. And then it happened.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you know, like it come May, you know, they started digging, and then June, you know, foundation, and then July, you know, the what is it? I can't think of the word right now. Framing.
The building
Yeah,
pieces.
and then everything slowly started coming together.
Yeah.
It was later than we expected.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
like we were like, you know, aiming for June of 2021, but it didn't get finished until October 15th of 2021. So it was very late.
But I mean, did they build it like this is what I want?
This is
how so they built exactly what you were after.
This is exactly what I was after.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really good people out there. There really is. And
well, you highlight this really, really important thing, and it's to find the right kinds of partners to work with, right?
Yep.
Like Joe, obviously, he believed in you and was willing to work with you to build a custom building for you. Yeah. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. No, I mean, it at the end of the day, you know, I think it's really a win-win. You know, he builds it. You know, like I lease it out every month for X amount. You know, we're in a contract for X amount of years, and you know, at the end of the day, like okay, like he gets a return. You know, like I get a place to make my items out of. And yeah, I mean, 2021, that's basically what we did. You know, we bought new machines, and I was using a ton of like my previous years' sales to fund the company. And that's exactly what I did. So, you know, I bought new machines, we bought new equipment, we moved into the building, and then, you know, we hired people. And 2021 was a really big year for us because that's really where we started getting into wholesaling. We work with a brand reps out on the East Coast who I think they had sent us like $100,000 in purchase orders already, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like we're so behind, like we have to figure this out.
How many employees did you hire in 2021?
So 2021 we had around 12. Yeah, so it was a mix of like part and full time. But it was a super busy year. We had to move, and mainly because we were so behind. We just had to move fast, you know, to get stuff done. But we didn't. You know, like we did it. And we also that year was huge too, because we changed up our packaging. We went from hand wrapping items in foils to like placing everything in plastic trays. So we had to make custom trays for those. You know, we had to find a supplier. We worked with another company also in Boise that kind of connects, you know, people to certain manufacturers. So they were really good about getting us in touch with a plastic supplier, you know, that's safe plastic, safe for food contact, you know, exactly what we needed to fit our cartons, our boxes. And then I actually still work very closely with an old friend of Italy who does all of our design on the packaging. So
cool.
Very cool.
That, you know, I work with him. And then, it was.
I was going to say, I think the packaging really is beautiful.
I love it.
Thank you.
Really, we've got some sitting over here.
I think I did see them.
Where are they? They're right behind us, right here. Yeah.
Oh, I almost walked away with these on.
Yeah, so these are some of the items we carry. And I think we only sent these because we didn't have any packaging earlier this year. We just got all of our packaging actually in on Friday. So we got, you know, 6 pallets of packaging in. But at the time, this was all we had. And I'm like, okay, like, I can send these out. But yeah, this last year, you know, we started introducing our single packs, which, you know, really took off. Our 3-packs, and then we've also had some, you know, different shapes coming up, like a snowman, and a penguin shape bomb. So we're really like, you know, continuing to expand like the brand, you know, the product line, you know, different flavors, different shapes, different sizes. We also really got heavily into now like private labeling. And actually that's, you know, 2022, we recently just conducted like an SQF audit. So SQF is like a certificate food manufacturers get.
Okay, yeah.
The acronym stands for Safe Quality Foods.
Okay, yeah.
But it's under like this Global Food Safety Initiative umbrella, which is what you need or food manufacturers need to get their products into Costco's, Sam's Clubs, Kroger's, which is like, you know, 3 of our huge leads right now.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was contingent. We had this.
Yeah.
And we passed the audit about a week ago with a 95 out of 100.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
And we are the very first company candy company in all of Idaho to be certified to this level.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's
So
really, really cool.
It'll really open up a lot of doors for us, you know, in terms of like private labeling.
Right.
We've gotten into bar manufacturing too now. So we're taking on a client that's we're going to be making some spicy hot chocolate bars for. So we'll be seeing a couple of those stuff launch in some stores soon. And
Very cool.
It's a lot of fun. You know, kind of where we are now versus where I was when I first started with $15. You know,
It's a really cool story.
Dollar Tree.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, so what does the future look like?
You know, I wish I could tell you, but every time I like try to look at it, I underestimate, and it's bigger than I ever expect it to be.
Yeah.
And that's really where, you know, I really hope it keeps going that way. You know, like I've put so much time and energy and effort and sweat and blood and tears into this business. You know, I have a lot of fun with it. You know, there's some days where it's very stressful. Like, you know, this SQF audit took me, I was preparing since February, you know, and it was just constant day and night, you know, for days at a time, from like 8 a.m. till 2 a.m. in the office, just writing procedures and making sure everything was right.
Do you sleep?
I do now. Yeah. After the audit, I do now. Yeah. So that was a
Good.
huge thing for me. Yeah. You know, but
If you could just see like his eyes right now, it's like they're like darting back and forth as he's thinking about that.
right.
Yeah.
No, last week I was just like, ugh, you know, like, twitching eyes and everything. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the future for the company, I really want to sort of build on that whole private label sector. It's a lot of fun, you know, just to have clients come to you and say, hey, like, you know, this is what we're looking for. This is the kind of blend we want. This is the profile we want. These are the sensory attributes we want the product to have. And so we've worked really closely with a lot of external, like, you know, specialists to sort of help all this come to fruition. SQF I couldn't have done without, like, you know, Tech Help Idaho. It's a University of Idaho extension. So it's a special department that helps small food manufacturers, even big food manufacturers, right? Like food safety procedures and policies and all that stuff, to then finally be certified to either, like, you know, obviously like FDA standards, local standards, but even like higher if you want, SQF, which is like the highest standard you could get for food safety.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot we can do now. I think, you know, the certificate's going to really open a lot of doors for us. You know, we're super excited about, you know, the direction the company's headed in. Cocoa Bombs continues to be like our main product, but as we sort of, you know, start to build our what is it, like our catalog, I guess you could say, our portfolio. Exactly. We're just kind of going with the flow and see where it takes us.
Yeah. How has it been seeing you've inspired so many people to go out and try to do something like similar? How is it seeing other people do, like, try to recreate your product?
I think it's great. I didn't talk about this earlier, but in 2020, when, like, you know, we had this huge year of COVID and online sales and restock events, I was actually reached out to by the Washington Post. So they called me, they did an interview, you know, like, hey, you know, like, we know you're the guy who, like, you know, created these products, you know, we'd love to do like a story. And so that's exactly what they did. You know, like, we just kind of had a conversation about, like, you know, what we do, how we do them, where we make them, what flavors, blah, blah, blah. And then that got posted. It drove a ton of sales to our website, but it also got a lot of other attention. So we were contacted just like a month or so later, I think, by a book publishing company based out of London to write. They reached out to me to write a book on Cocoa Bombs. And the book was more like a recipe book. So they wanted me to put together, like, you know, just recipes for different flavors that they saw on the Washington Post's article. And they were just saying, like, yeah, you know, like, obviously, like, you know, you can use, like, you know, whatever you want, you know, whatever flavors, whatever styles you want. And we didn't use our, like, proprietary methods in there. You know, we use, like, you know, what people do today, which is the red silicone mold, you know, kind of cover it with chocolate and then heat 2 halves and then seal it. But, you know, we did just that. And, you know, that was a lot of pressure too. Cause I agreed to it, I think, like, almost a month later after they contacted me, and they're like, okay, like, we didn't know if you were going to do it, but, now that you said yes, you know, like, we're behind. So you have to write I think it was like 113 pages in like 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
And you have to take reference photos. And yeah, so
Oh,
it was a
man.
lot, but I did it. And the book ended up launching October of last year. It launched everywhere in the UK. It launched here at Barnes and Nobles, at Target, just like a bunch of retail stores. It launched in Canada and it launched in Australia. So it was like an international launch, and we sold a ton of them. People loved the book, and it was a way for people to just have their own take at making these products. They're fun products, they really are, and no one supplier can meet everybody's demand, and everybody has just different ideas, and they put their own touch to it, and no one cocoa bomb is like exactly the same as another manufacturer's. So for me, it's great. I really want people to enjoy these. I think these are going to be like a huge holiday staple for the next years, if not for good. Like the candy cane,
Right.
People want them in different flavors and shapes and sizes and all that stuff, and I think there's like a lot of creativity that can be done with these. So for people to go out and make their own, I think it's great. You can definitely use my book as a reference, or other sources. But
Yeah. So do you ship internationally, or is it just North America?
So we do a little bit to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We have customers that order maybe like a pallet, and our main responsibility there is just to get it to like Seattle, and then they bring it into
Figure it
Canada.
out from there.
They figure it out from there. But we do ship to Canada. We recently also onboarded onto Fair just last year, the wholesale platform online. And we've been seeing a lot of traction there from some Canadian customers too. We did some stuff actually to Taiwan too. We did some stuff to Germany, to Italy. And yeah, we're getting ready to maybe do like a huge project in Kuwait too. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I'm ready to try one. I've never had one before. I'm ready to try it.
Well,
Should we do it?
We gotta take a break because we gotta heat up the milk and
Let's
stuff.
let's take a quick break, and we'll do that.
Take 5.
East Idaho Credit Union offers business accounts that will fit your needs. We have dividend earning checking accounts and high yield savings accounts, like our brand new Velocity Money Market that earns up to 2%. Check us out at eastidahocu.org/business.
I was talking to my wife this morning actually, and I was like, I'm gonna interview the original creator of the Cocoa Bomb. And she's like, no, you're not. I was like, yeah, I am. He's from here. And she's like, no, he's not. He's like, yeah, Blackfoot, which is, that's like our community, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of out towards Moreland, but Blackfoot's sort of the community that we're in most of the time. I was like, yeah, he's from Blackfoot. She's like, no, stop. It's like, no, seriously. And so we had Bailey puts together like basically a packet for me to research our guests before they get on here. So I went through and read all of those articles and everything. And so I took that email and actually forwarded it to my wife. And I was like, seriously, this is it. Look, read it. And so she's reading this morning and she's like, yeah, maybe you are.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's such a cool success story, an Idaho success story that nobody knows about.
Yeah, I think I keep it maybe too low profile. I don't know. I just feel like I'm so busy doing other stuff that I'm just
good for you though, right? Like, you don't owe anybody like. No. You don't have to be at the head of the parade with a baton and being like, we're here, right? You don't have to do that. But no. So all the coverage that you've gotten, how did it happen? Like, did you go out and be like, hey, you should do this article, you should do this thing, you should cover or did it just
It's came.
It's just come to you.
It came, yeah. So, the Washington Post, I remember I missed her call like twice.
Oh, he's blowing off the Washington Post.
Because my phone was just going off like constantly.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'll just have them leave a voicemail. Because I can't get to it right now. I just can't. I have to do this.
It's so
and
funny.
I remember they called twice, and then the second time they left a voice, I'm like, oh crap, I gotta call them back. And then, from there, like the book was all inbound too. They just introduced who they were, and like, publishing company based out of London. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then like, I did some more research. I'm like, okay, like just like, you said your wife, like, okay, maybe they are,
Yeah.
And then, I looked into them, and they were legit. And, like, okay, here's a contract. And like, we looked over it with, legals and everything. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I signed it, we got, first payment, second payment, third payment, and then the book release. I'm like, okay, wow, that's really cool. And then from there, I think the local press has been a lot of inbound too. So last year I did the Boise Entrepreneur Week Challenge. Have you heard of that before?
No.
So it's this really cool thing Boise does. And hopefully whoever's listening, to this podcast will do it in the future, but it's for food manufacturers, but it can be anything. Yeah. It doesn't have to be candy. Like I joined it as a candy company.
Could be tacos.
But so it's mainly like packaged goods.
Oh, okay. Okay,
so that's the main thing.
So if you package the taco, then
it's like consumer packaged goods. So last year I was one of 7 finalists. And there was me, the candy company. There's a Roots Chips company. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're based out of Aberdeen. They make potato chips.
Okay.
There was a Naughty Fruit. It sounds exactly like what it sounds like. So it's like spicy fruit. It's like naughty fruit. It's really good stuff. Yeah. He's actually based out of Jackson or Teton. I think.
Yeah.
So super local too.
Yeah.
There was a salsa. Company. That's so funny because she used to be my old boss at Boise State. Now she quit and went into food manufacturing. So salsa, and then there was like 4 beverage companies. So it was like a probiotic drink, and then there was like a free spirit, like a spirit free drink mix.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, you go up against these contestants. And you pitch your product, and Albertsons is the main sponsor behind this event. So you're basically pitching for shelf space on Albertsons. And you're pitching for like a grand prize of $25,000 for first place and $5,000 for second place.
Yeah.
And everybody goes on the same day. You have your pitch prepared and
it's
everything.
Like a Shark Tank kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Except you only have like 10 minutes to do everything.
Yeah. Wow.
So I did just that, and last year I was like 2 points away from winning the first grand prize.
Oh, man.
So the company that won first prize was in Boise, and they're Earth Bev Co. So it's like a probiotic sort of drink, really good for you. Like you should find. They're in Albertsons now.
Okay.
So yeah, they won the grand prize, which was shelf space on Albertsons, and then $25,000, and then I was 2 points away. So I won runner up.
Yeah.
But it was like $5,000 grand prize.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I mean, they're looking for local, healthy, organic, and I guess sustainable foods.
Yeah.
So
to try my packaged taco idea for that this next stop.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so should we try some of these?
We got to, because the milk's real hot.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hold on. Oh. Yeah, we're holding.
Maybe that's like
open the boxes.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
here we go.
Which kind?
I don't know.
Do we want to do here?
I'm okay with whatever.
What do you recommend? That's your favorite one?
That's a huge seller. This is also another huge seller. If you want to.
Okay.
But the caramel's good too. I mean, this is top seller. This is second top seller. So
I'm down to try whatever. They all sound amazing.
You can marshmallows.
Which one are you feeling?
Yeah.
You guys can pick.
All right, let's paper rock scissors for it. The caramel one.
Is that the one you want?
I don't know. Sure. Yeah.
I was gonna say you can just have it, but I'm competitive.
Let's do it.
So let's do it.
Ooh. Okay.
You can have it.
No, you can.
I just wanted to win.
I'm gonna take the s'mores.
That's all I cared about.
Okay, so the s'more milk chocolate base with mini marshmallows. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds really good.
So,
okay.
It's and we naturally flavor the chocolate with non-GMO ingredients.
Okay.
I love that.
That's great.
The chocolate's also non-GMO. We recently just switched to mini vegan marshmallows. I don't think these will have mini vegan marshmallows. But our new labels are made with mini vegan marshmallows.
Okay. The microphone's really loving this
right
now.
Right? It's like ASMR.
Yes.
Look at these marshmallows.
All the people listening are just loving it.
Let's see.
These are beautiful.
I love how shiny they are.
They are.
Oh, and it's like a little maraca.
It is like a little maraca.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love it.
I always love to shake them after.
Well, and it's such like attractive packaging and presentation. Like they have to make like the best gifts, right?
People love these for
Totally.
gifts. Yeah.
Such good.
They're such good holiday
Gifts.
gifts, like even like
Yeah.
employee appreciation
Mhm.
gifts. We get a lot
Love
of,
that.
Yeah. Okay, so then I was told frothy hot milk.
frothy hot milk.
That's
Let's
where
see
you
if
need to
it's
be.
frothy hot.
Okay.
Hopefully, I did okay with milk.
Let's see how we did, Bailey. We're gonna grade your milk heating.
Do you want to do
Abilities.
the honors
You want
of
me to do the
pouring?
honors?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I feel like
That's the
we have to
only
do it
right,
that way.
Let
Let
me
the
bring
master
this
work.
over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Let's see. I need to aim right for it. And normally I usually only do,
That's
like, about
frothy looking there.
6 ounces of milk.
He even knows down to the.
Dang.
What do you think, Eric? Is that hot enough there?
Yeah.
There it goes.
It's so fun.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's so cool.
This
Here we go.
one, so this one's yours.
I feel very special right now
Yeah.
that Eric is preparing my cocoa bomb.
We can forever talk about
I
this.
know. I'm going to tell all kinds of stories about this. Be telling my grandchildren.
This one looks thick.
So you want a slow pour on
Yeah,
that thing so that
Normally,
it
it's like a
melts through.
nice slow pour so that it melts through.
That one's kind of moving around a little too, which makes it a little tricky. There
Oh,
it is.
that's beautiful.
I love that's so satisfying.
It really is.
It's so cool. That's awesome.
Love
There
it.
we go. And then you take like a spoon or whatever, right?
Yep.
You mix
And
it.
you just kind of mix it around, straw,
Stir,
spoon.
Here we go.
Stir,
Perfect.
If you want to mix it in very well, oh, thank you, so that it gets. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
He's had one before.
Yeah, I've had plenty. I do a lot of sensory testing that I'm just like.
I was going to ask about that. When you're working on new flavors, like how do you do that? Does it just come to you in the night?
So for a lot of new product development, we basically take a look at what's not out there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we stick with a lot of our classics too.
Yeah, you gotta have
but
the old
for
standbys,
exactly,
yeah.
But we try to get a little creative with different flavors and just
Mhm.
kind of see like, oh, maybe this is something different that people would like.
Yeah.
I know one year we did like a bourbon whiskey flavored
Yeah.
Interesting.
cocoa bomb.
Did you like that one?
So I thought it was interesting. Like it was good. Like I wouldn't say it was my favorite, but
Yeah.
like we didn't like obviously do anything with the alcohol part of it. We just infused it with
Was there like
natural-
an instruction here, like you
Oh.
may add?
Yeah.
like 2 ounces
So-
of bourbon. To
Yeah,
this
so
if
that's
you'd
what they
like.
did.
Yeah.
We're just gonna add the shots to it ourselves.
Right,
I'm like,
right,
go have
yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
Like, but
Mhm.
we did the profile of the aged bourbon whiskey
Yeah.
into the chocolate. They really liked
I
it.
bet that was actually really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was good. It was
Yeah.
good. Like I never got to try it with alcohol. I probably will sometime this winter.
Yeah, you could still.
But
make that
yeah,
happen.
just had a shot in there.
Love it.
But yeah, they liked it. And then a lot of the other flavors we do too, we just kind of see what's not out there. And this year we've introduced like an Irish coffee
Oh, I bet that'd be
flavor.
good. This is so good.
It's delicious.
I've never had one before.
Thank you.
This is so,
So
good.
good.
You gotta make sure like it's super mixed in to get all the chocolate. Sometimes it like sticks a little bit, but
That's delicious.
thank
It's
you.
I
so
love it.
good.
The
I
caramel
don't know
is
that
so
I'll
good.
ever do anything else again. Like we've just
Do
been
it.
doing, like what is it, the Nesquik or whatever?
Swiss Miss.
Swiss Miss.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know why we did, or we'll do Abuelita as well.
Abuelitas,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
good too. Yeah,
But this is excellent. This
I
is
love
so good.
this.
You should do like a
a Mexican hot chocolate one.
Mexican hot
Yeah.
chocolate one.
So we have a Mexican cinnamon one, and we're
Ooh.
always
Oh, you do?
just like coming up with new flavors. We have
Oh.
about
Love it.
I think this year we have 13 flavors,
Mhm.
and they all range for like different seasons.
Yeah.
So like we do pumpkin spice.
Ooh.
I didn't have any pumpkin spice
That's
one, or else I
okay.
would have brought one.
Oh, I'm just
Um,
gonna go order a bunch.
We did a gingerbread one this year, Irish coffee. We
Mm.
were doing strawberry.
Mm.
We added the bourbon whiskey one to our line again this year just to give it a shot to see
Mhm.
how it does, direct to consumer.
Mhm.
It's a very small amount that we tested, but
Right.
we're going to test it nonetheless. What else do we have? We have like cookies and cream, s'mores, obviously. We have peppermint, which is huge during the
yeah.
holidays, and the peppermint flavor we have is just so good. I wish I would have had some
love
at
a
the
peppermint
time,
hot chocolate.
but you know, as you know, holiday season gets closer, maybe I can send you guys some to try them out. Super popular, super popular
Amazing.
item.
Right.
And then you know, just our standard milk, white, and dark chocolate.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Love
But
it.
for profiles, you know, we either work with the clients to kind of just say, you know, what they want. We've had some very interesting requests. And for the most part, you know, like we work through
What's
them.
the strangest request you've gotten on flavor?
Spicy, like
Actually,
like spice.
like jalapeno or like something like that.
Interesting.
Like
Interesting.
habanero with like some spice seasoning in the shape of a bomb. So I'm just like,
Interesting.
The shape of a bomb.
yeah, like a cocoa bomb.
Oh.
Like, yeah. No, not the shape of a bomb, like a cocoa bomb. So yeah.
I think I saw on your TikTok that you do some different shapes of these too.
Yeah.
What are all the shapes that you do for these?
So this year we're introducing like a penguin shaped milk chocolate cocoa bomb. So that's a little bit bigger. I know we've had some customers who like say, oh, like, well, I wish it was bigger enough for like, you know, 8 to 12 ounces. Cause these are usually only for like 6 ounces, which I maybe might have over poured a little bit of milk into it, but you know,
I think this is perfect.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
But we get like requests for like 8 to 12 ounces, and the penguin we have, like it's pretty big, you know, like you could fill this whole thing with milk and melt the penguin, and it would make a really nice rich cup of hot chocolate. We also are making like a white chocolate snowman. Same size, so like it's just this little tubby snowman. It's a cute thing.
Cute.
And then we're also getting ready to launch like a Valentine's Day heart.
Oh, that's a great
Valentine's Day
idea.
season, yeah. So like it'll
Love
be
that.
like a pink, white chocolate strawberry heart, and then a milk chocolate heart. And yeah, that's kind of it for now. We're also, you know, have some other stuff in the works.
Would you do one for like a pitcher size, like just you
Oh
drop
my
a
gosh.
huge
Oh, that's so
one in?
funny.
Ginormous.
I've thought about that before. Yeah, I saw a video of one on TikTok. I think last year. Which was
Somebody
like
tried to do
huge
The
one.
world's largest
Yeah,
Put it
hot
in
cocoa
like a
bomb.
pot.
Yeah, they put it in a pot,
Yeah.
and then there's like this video circulating around. It was just like, oh, it's a floater, or something like that. I was just like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
Yeah, I
funny,
guess
yeah.
that could look a little unappetizing
Yeah.
if you're not
It
careful.
was huge, but I've thought about it too. Like, I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
You know, just like a mega bomb. You know, like
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, this big or something, enough for like, you know,
You just
feed
gotta be
6 to 8 people or something.
Yeah, there you go. Just be careful of the shape.
Yeah.
Feeds a family of 12.
That really might be a pound of chocolate
Yeah,
at that point.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. That'd be fun.
I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It's so like
Creamy.
and
I
smooth.
like the creaminess of
I
it.
can't believe how like creamy it is. That's really incredible. To
This
me.
size is actually like the perfect amount for me. I think it's just like perfect. I don't want to feel like too overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Yeah, that's what, you know, we did internally too. Like we saw like, okay, this size is good, you know, like I think for like a novelty item, you know, something you want to try, you know, even like something to just kind of having a cover for like a snack or something, you know,
Right,
like during
totally.
the winter season, you know, read a book or whatever, you know, have a hot cocoa night, you know. Yeah, but we also, you know, are starting to do like different shapes, different sizes. We have some customers who like, you know, obviously want like bigger and like, you know, but we're looking
Love
into
it.
a lot of.
So one of the things that sort of struck me as we've talked, there's a couple of things. One is just like the pure grittiness that you have, like working through a lot of this stuff and all the opportunities that there were to quit and to say, this is too much, it's too stressful. I'm really impressed with that, actually. And then the other thing that's been really, really interesting to hear you talk about is kind of your willingness and openness to just try stuff. And, you know, whether it be we're going to, you know, white label something or private label something, we're going to do a direct consumer model, we're going to do a wholesale model, we're just going to try stuff. What kind of advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's gone through, you know, who's working through their first 3 years around like, how do you be tough when things are really, really hard? How do you be resilient? And then how do you be open to just trying stuff that maybe you didn't expect right at first?
I think, you know, one of the biggest things I've had to overcome is learning how to maintain my composure.
Yeah.
So I can get very in the moment. So to say, like, sometimes like I let my emotions get the best of me, but there's been a lot of challenging obstacles, that I faced from the start of the company to, where it is now. And maintaining my composure was one way to just kind of step out of the picture, nearsighted picture, and just step out and just see things as a whole. That's a huge thing. We've had some obstacles this year, the biggest one actually being our SQF audit. So we were supposed to have done that in July, to be able to launch at a national retailer for this holiday season. And that didn't happen because I wasn't prepared for the audit. We had some construction going on into the facility. We were adding a warehouse. And there's just no way we would have been able to do it. And, they were very, what's the word? I mean, they have a business to run too, so like it's very important timelines are met. Sure. But we just couldn't. And, when I said that, they're like, obviously there was like some, back and forth things that like, well, you said you could do this, and, you said this was a time frame. We wouldn't have gone forward with the project if it wasn't, being sure to have been completed, by this date. And, you just have to sometimes own up to your mistakes. You're like, well, I'm sorry, like I thought we would have had the building done by then, like we were still kind of in the middle of like, finalizing our SQF program. I think for the most part, we would have passed with the program written procedures. It was just the building that wasn't finished in its entirety. So, having the auditor show up and then just be like, oh, well, you don't have this done. Like, we can't include it in the scope of the audit if it's not finished.
You could have put hung a tapestry over it. It's like a Scooby-Doo episode or something. Right. Pretended like it wasn't
Take
there.
it down, you meddling kid. Yeah, I think it's just, really learning how to maintain your composure goes a very long way. Owning up to your mistakes is a huge thing too. If you make a mistake, like, don't try to point fingers at anyone else. If it's your fault, own up to it. And I think now more than ever, people are sometimes more compassionate, after kind of what we went through over the last couple of years, especially in the business world. We see delays are just the name of the game right now. We see packaging being delayed. It's really hard for us to get chocolate right now. We had our marshmallow supplier, actually of mini marshmallows, just cut us off because like we're not taking on any new customers, and we can't keep up with our own production. Our old chocolate supplier also cut us off because they oversold by like 270%. So we had to find a whole new supplier, get them approved, and now all of our chocolate comes in from Belgium, which is better. I think it's really good chocolate.
It's fantastic,
and then we also switched marshmallows, so we went from these mini dehydrated to now like full clean label, vegan, no gelatin, preservative, artificial flavor free marshmallows. And so I think that's another thing too, is like if something doesn't happen the way you want it to, it's because it's going to happen in a better way. So kind of just don't stress about it in the moment because something better is coming.
Gosh, that is such good advice. Yeah, I know every time in my own career when something is, I've thought maybe I wanted to do it this way, and then it doesn't happen that way, and then something better happens, and I'm like, oh, okay. I should have just like trusted the process, right? You make another good point about like just owning up to mistakes. I've found that people are generally very forgiving, actually. As long as you're like, yeah, man, I'm sorry, I messed this thing up. It was a mistake of mine. They're really forgiving. They may tan your hide for just a minute there, but then they'll be like, okay, let's figure out how to work through it. It's when you try to like talk your way out of it. That's when people are just like not forgiving.
They see right
through
it.
They do.
They see right through the BS if you try to go that route. So
yeah, it's better to just own up to it and move on.
Yeah. I think that's also a really huge lesson of mine. Like when I was younger, I was not so much that way. I would like to like talk my way out of things. Sure. But, I think this has really changed my mindset and my perception of, just who I am as a person and, what I expect from other people. very eye-opening.
Yeah, well, it's a maturity thing,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Like only immature people try to talk their way out of something that's their fault,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Sometimes you just got to say, "Ugh,
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have done better on that, but I didn't," and that's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, what other pieces of advice would you give to like the young, up and coming entrepreneur?
I see so many people with such amazing talent that just don't go for it because they're scared of failing. Um, I, obviously I was scared going into this, like I had no idea what to expect, but if you never try, like you'll just never know. And I think that's, like if you don't try, sometime in the future you're gonna regret and just like look back and like, dang, I wish I would have tried that thing, that like, because I almost didn't do this either,
right?
Like I almost really didn't, like, that Saturday day, I remember I was just gonna like, I think I just want to have a lazy day today, not really do anything. But something just pushed me to like, like go try this, like just go out. And I didn't have almost any money to my name at the time. It was like, $15 was kind of a lot for me, like, to give perspective, I was crashing on my friend's couch,
right?
Yeah.
So
I think just not letting, the fear of like, failing or rejection or anything hold you back can and will hold you back if you let it. So, just try that idea. If it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. You can always just start fresh and try it again.
I was reading this book a couple of years ago, and they were talking about, it was actually a researcher who's trying to find the commonality in successful entrepreneurs. And what he realized was there's almost no commonality. Some are super extroverted, some are super introverted, some are really well educated, some dropped out of college, some were like marketing geniuses while others were product geniuses. They're just, it ranges ridiculously. He said there was one kind of consistent behavior pattern, though, outside of all those like incommonalities. And it was that really, really great entrepreneurs look at failure differently than other people do. And they still like understand the risk of what they're doing, but they have a belief that the reward is greater than the risk, and that they can figure it out. And they're okay with saying, well, that didn't work, let's try something different. That didn't work, let's pivot again. And they look at those failures as, instead of like failures, I messed up and this is not good, they looked at it as growth.
Yes,
right?
Definitely. I think that's a huge thing. I know this season, and this really doesn't have a lot or anything to do with Cocoa Bombs really, but we had a really great year last year. We had a really, really great year last year. For once in my life, I finally had like, so to say, disposable income to kind of just do whatever I wanted to. And I'm a really big advocate for like diversification. So, don't really put all your eggs in one basket, especially when it comes to like, business and, finances and stuff like that.
Right.
So I took this leap. It was very risky, but it was essentially, like starting a food trailer with an old friend of mine from high school who I actually hired at the company to work for Cocoa Bombs for a bit. Anyways, like fast forward, it was doing really great. And then, there came a time like in June where we just, didn't see it. I guess partners didn't really see eye to eye with it. So it ultimately, closed. And I wouldn't really see that so much as a failure, because at the end of the day, like I was able to, gather all the assets and, turn it around and sell it for more than I bought it for. So it was great.
Yeah.
But
probably learned a ton too.
It was a very, very big learning lesson, and doing your due diligence with people you go into business with. I think that's also another really big thing. So you want to make sure that you have, like, I think it's great to have, a business partner. If you feel like you can't do something on your own because you're limited to skills, having a business partner, with the right skills that, you gap, so to say, that you don't have.
Yeah, complementary
Yes,
skill set.
yeah. I think it's very it could be like a match made in heaven.
Sure.
So definitely look for partners. I think if you are scared to take that leap of faith on your own, but also be sure that there's as much both partners have like as much skin in the game as the other does. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it's I think it's.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's trying to vet a potential partner? Or trying to decide, is this the right person? Is this not the right person? What kinds of things would you like? What boxes would you want checked for you to say that's the right person or not?
I don't know if I can really answer that a lot just because I've only ever had one experience with that.
And it wasn't great.
Yeah. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't, as fruitful as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you really just want to be sure they are as motivated as they seem. And that's really hard to tell because, you maybe are not with them all the time. So you only get to see them X amount of hours or X amount of days out of the week, or maybe even like once a week, once every other week. So people can like talk up a good talk, but then when it comes to like actually executing, it's a whole different thing. I think intuitively though, like you sometimes know. Like I think what happened more so with like this other venture was just I don't really know. It wasn't really so much like, I think it was more like the motivation, I think. Yeah. So
it's tough to feel like you're the one doing everything.
Yes. Yeah. So just definitely don't like jump the gun so quick. I think that's probably a big thing. Take your time to do the research, to find the right person. To really just take the time. Take the time.
Yeah, I like it. Hey, what haven't we asked you that we missed that we should have asked you about?
I don't know. I think we covered a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bailey,
is there anything you guys?
I don't know.
What's your message to the world?
My message to the world. Travel. Travel lots.
Why?
This was a huge inspiration from my travels.
Yeah.
None of this would have happened if it wasn't for traveling. Nothing. None of this would have happened. Now I have a friend in Italy that does our packaging. I have contacts in Europe, that supply us with our machines, with our molds, chocolate. And I just, you see the world from a very different perspective when you actually get out there, travel. Yeah. I think it's vital. It's vital to success.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think just having a diversity of experience is really, really helpful. Traveling is a great way to see different perspectives and get a diversity of experience that you just can't get really any other way. It's a great point. Awesome. Yeah.
On that note, let's set up a podcast in Italy. Let's go travel and do a stationary one there.
Please.
That'd be great.
I can't wait to go back
to that one. Yeah. All right. Well, Eric, it's been so nice having you on.
Thank you guys.
Really incredible story and fantastic product, and you're a joy to have on. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun.
Good. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Dragon Slayer podcast by East Idaho Credit Union. We'll see you next time.